Welcome back to a very special Christmas episode of Critical Misses. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me, as always, is Moop here.
Hi.
We're going to have a very special two-fer and one-fer at the same time. So season 25 is only going to be one episode. If you're a patron, this is coming out on Christmas Day. We're going to do a Christmas exchange here. We're going to take two famous kind of Christmas staple short movies from both of our childhoods, and we're gonna watch both of them.
Yes.
I guess we'll go in chronological order here. I guess we hadn't really decided this beforehand, but starting here is A Charlie Brown Christmas. Came out in 1965, which is the kind of quintessential American feel-good animated Christmas thing. This, like the other one, is 25 minutes long. And how I feel like for most people in the States, they've probably seen this at least a couple of times. Have you seen this before?
No. I've
Okay.
never seen Charlie Brown Christmas. Ever.
Do you know anything about this movie?
No.
Okay.
You could ask me if I know anything about Charlie Brown, and other than somebody keeps moving a football out the way, a hand egg out the way,
Right.
then I would not know anything about it.
That's about the most you need to know about the Charlie Brown comics. It's largely a lot of that. So I'm curious because I feel like when we get into this movie, I sort of don't want to spoil it, but I think you'll recognize this is a very influential and impactful movie in the fact that you'll be able to see a bunch of the set pieces from this movie and be like, oh, I've seen that all over the internet, or I've seen that parodied in a bunch of, cartoons in the 80s and 90s, or things like that. So I think you'll kind of you might recognize the songs because they're pretty famous, but you might not, having not grown up here. But I think some of the kind of the scenes and the iconography you'll probably recognize. That being said, I don't remember the last time I've seen this movie, so I don't remember a lot of it. I remember it being the thing that was on TV that everybody kind of gathered around and watched around that time of year. And I remember liking it a lot, even as a kid, which feels like kind of a big deal of like, yeah, this is pretty good. As a kid, it probably felt like it was 90 minutes long, but as a grown up, it'll go by in a blink of an eye. But I'm also looking forward to watching it again, just for like, is this thing still good? Does this thing still hold up in a way that I'm kind of curious about? On the other side, we have 1982's The Snowman, based on the book of the same title. Why don't you kind of intro the Snowman for those of us like myself that haven't seen it?
So, pretty much from what I understand, this is the English-British equivalent of Charlie Brown, which is to say, this is a movie that gets put on every Christmas. You'll always see it, regardless. It is not a happy thing.
Okay.
When I was younger, this thing would make me cry every year.
Sure. I think that these two movies share that, where it's like, it's fine, but not overall like the saccharine sweet sort of thing.
Yes. And it's one of those things that, like, when you, at least at my age, when I was growing up, this was just something that was on year after year. Definitely aired Christmas Day. It would also air beforehand. And we don't have like that big tradition that America has about like football games on a specific date or anything like that. So it would just be like, in England, Christmas Day, the thing you're sitting down to watch is you're watching the Doctor Who special, you're
Right.
watching the Snowman,
Right.
and whatever else just happens to be on television at that time.
Right. All the kind of like end of year Christmas specials that are going on for TV and movies. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering...
Also, it has a song in it that became a #1 hit single, and it's probably one of the biggest Christmas songs in England. Like, Mariah Carey weeps in the face of this song.
Of this song's popularity. Well, I'm curious because the name of the song here is on the Wikipedia page, but I'm curious to see if it's a song that is huge enough that I have heard it even kind of like in the background, or maybe as a part of like a Christmas movie that takes place in England or something. Like, is that kind of woven into it? But I don't recognize it by name.
Yes. It is very, very famous. If you sing the first line of it to anybody my age who grew up in Britain during the particular time frame, all of it, you will more than likely get the rest of the song.
Right. It's like Oasis's "Don't Look Back in Anger." It's like, you know every word of that song. Everybody knows every word of that song.
Why?
Because it's a good song. It's a great album. Not Christmas, though. We're not talking about
it's like saying Wonderwall.
That's
it's going to get that in your head.
Yeah, curses. All right, so I don't think there's too much more to intro here. We got two 25-minute kind of TV movies here that we're gonna watch back to back. We're gonna do a cross culture Christmas experiment here, and let's go watch the films.
Bye.
We're back. Our movie Christmas exchange has completed. We have watched the two short films, both of which I'm sure felt about 2 hours long when you're a kid, and it's a blink and they're over now, which was kind of fun. We'll start here as we started with the in the first segment here with Charlie Brown's Christmas. This is the one you haven't seen, correct?
Correct. You might have to explain the characters of Charlie Brown to me, because
you're giving me a lot of credit for remembering like anybody other than Charlie Brown and Snoopy.
Okay, because everyone seems to hate Charlie Brown, and then Lucy seems like a stuck-up rich kid.
Yeah, the thing about Charlie Brown and like all the Peanuts comics is it's like a ton of characters, and they all really hate Charlie Brown, and Charlie Brown is kind of depressed all the time because he can't do anything right, but kind of accidentally does the right thing in the end. So it's very odd. It seems like it's very much it has always seemed to me like it's a product of its era, really, of just kind of being odd and inscrutable. And I remember Pigpen, because he's the kid with like the dirt cloud around him all the time.
Yeah,
and that's really the only characters I ever remember.
Which is he a classist character? Maybe.
Maybe. I'm not sure. There's a lot of questions about Peanuts, sort of overall. There's a lot of confusing stuff there. What did you think of Charlie Brown's Christmas here on your first viewing?
I found it interesting that Charlie seems to be a child concerned with capitalism.
Yeah, I wrote in my note here that, or in my notes here, that I didn't remember it being so anti-consumerist. Like, oh, the holidays sure are about consumerism and presents now, huh? And I was like, this is really heady for like someone that's like 6 watching this. Like, it's it goes hard on that in a way that but it's also kind of funny that Snoopy's house is like all decked out in lights and ornaments and everything, and he wins first prize. So like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very surprised by the capitalist product producing a capitalist product to
Hmm.
complain about capitalism.
Yeah, it's interesting as a polar opposite of our other movie, as it is primarily dialogue focused and
Hmm.
concerned about the true meaning of Christmas, um, in a way that the other film isn't overtly, in a way that
Yes.
I thought was interesting. Um, I was one line I wrote down that I liked from this is Charlie Brown, you're the only person I know who can take a wonderful season like Christmas and turn it into a problem. I thought
They haven't met me yet, let me tell you.
that's right. It's like a wonderfully brutal line in a way that I think is, um,
Yeah, but he's also trying to direct a Christmas play, and
yeah,
they keep ignoring him and
that's
playing the
right.
stupid Peanuts theme or whatever it's called.
It's interesting because I forgot how iconic the soundtrack is. Like that's the Peanuts theme especially is the thing you kind of heard around the holidays when you thought about this movie, because it's kind of a 1-2 punch. It's the Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown is the Halloween movie, and then there's this, but like it has a surprisingly really great kind of classic jazz soundtrack that, I think I forgot, I
Hmm.
forgot all about. Um, Also forgot that this sure was a movie that came out in the 60s that the emotional crux of this movie is a scripture reading, which,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah,
There's that, and then I don't know. It's very tropish nowadays, I guess, is the way to say that.
mhm.
That they all gather around and decorate his terrible tree and make it look like a regular tree, to make
Did
everything better.
did you recognize the like drooped over sad tree with the one red ornament on it?
No.
Oh, okay, because I feel like that's like the one kind of long-standing thing from this is just that sad drooped over tree, like losing all of its needles all over the place. Um,
Uh-huh.
it thankfully it does have kind of a, like a lot of the Peanut stuff does. Everyone eventually comes together to realize that like maybe Charlie Brown did have their best interests in heart, and like everything is okay at the end of the day. But
Maybe everyone is an a-hole.
yeah, maybe everyone's just kind of mean to this kid that's like a depressed
Uh-huh.
bald kid in the 60s. Leave him alone. Leave him and his dog alone.
Yeah. Beethoven's Fair Elise is a nice reference.
Yep.
Um, and like when he plays Jingle Bells, he just does the single note Jingle
Ding
Bells.
ding
It's
ding
pretty great.
ding ding ding. Yeah. that one's real. That one's real good. Um, but yeah, it's this movie is interesting because it's a lot more slight than I was remembering. Um,
Hmm.
Even though it's kind of 25 minutes packed full of dialogue. And
Yeah.
I'm for me, I'm not entirely sure it gets to its own point. Like if I'm gonna think about
No.
it too much,
Yeah, it feels like it's trying to send a message about Christmas being more than just the Christmas stuff, but at the same time, it's aiming for an audience that's probably too young to understand that.
yeah,
Like
because I
the fact that they constantly refer to it as consumerism and as this other stuff, the
yeah,
kids aren't going to understand what that is.
yeah,
Explain, hey, maybe presents don't matter. Be with your friends and make sure everyone's happy. That's the thing to
exactly,
say, not
right,
wanting consumerism as a problem,
yeah,
which it is.
right, but maybe not a problem for a 25-minute kids movie. Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's sort of interesting because I don't remember that message being so hammered in and then it kind of not getting all the way there. Um,
Yeah.
but an interesting ride through, I think.
Out
Um,
of curiosity, has your kid seen this before?
I think we watched it a couple of years ago, and I think, um, like most kids, I think sort of finds it a little bit boring because there's no like
Uh-huh.
musical numbers, there's no sort of action scenes or anything. Like it's kind of 25 minutes of a bunch of kids talking, and that's about it. So, um, but
Uh-huh.
I think that's the sort of experience that I had growing up too, where it's like, yeah, we're watching this again during Christmas. Oh my god, it's so boring. And then like someday it kind of clicks where you're like, oh, okay, that's actually not so bad. And then I think as you get older and older, you're sort of like, I don't know, maybe that's not that great. So
Yeah.
who knows? Any final thoughts here for Charlie Brown's Christmas?
I mean, it's fine. I thought, like, animation-wise, I thought it was pretty solid. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, there's very clear cuts and jumps and stuff like that, but especially in the 60s, you're not going to notice that kind of stuff. I think my biggest issue with it, like you said, the music is solid, like, and kind of legendary. Even I know the stupid theme at this point, and
Yeah.
like, Peanuts is not a thing that exists in England, so that tells you how iconic that is. I think my biggest issue with this is it's trying to send a message, and the message is just, it's not that it's a bad message to send the kids, it's just the message, the delivery vehicle for the message is terrible.
Yeah.
Especially, like, one of the reasons I asked about the character of Charlie Brown is because if he's always the quote-unquote bad guy, you're pointing out that the bad guy has got a problem with the thing that you enjoy.
Right,
like,
right. And he's like always a scapegoat where it's like, maybe Christmas is more than that. And they're like, burn the witch. It's like, wait, no, hold on. Listen to him. maybe he's cooking something here. Yeah. Our second movie here, though, is The Snowman. Reminders of the 1982 one, not any other maybe horror-based one that released.
1982, 25 minutes animated. You'll know it when you see it. This is the one you hadn't seen.
Yeah, this is the one that I hadn't seen. Boy, you want to talk about cool animation? Snowman has cool animation. Not only does it look exactly like the book, it has that kind of like colored pencil, kind of like sketchy hashiness to it. But there's so much stuff in this movie that has really interesting angles and like really interesting kind of you don't always see it a lot in animation because it's really hard to do, but a lot of like spinning. The
light, the motorbike light.
A motorbike light is really cool. Like, and there's a lot of like towns spinning, which is really hard to keep that kind of perspective going as things are spinning and twisting and moving. But some really, really cool animation. And it's the oh, God.
This is the movie that when I was young, and it didn't click with me until I was watching it. This is the thing that made me realize how important music is to mood, to tone, to storytelling, to everything. Because, like you hinted at when we were talking about Charlie Brown, there is no dialogue in this.
No, it's the polar opposite where Charlie Brown is like, go, go, go dialogue literally all the time. This has zero in it. I think it really works in its favor to make a really cool thing.
I like the use of the different instruments to convey tone, feelings, motion, whatever. The trombone or whatever it is when he's first outside in the snow wearing his wellies and is doing the plom, 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 plom as he's taking steps. Really, it's shocking how much is conveyed through just the sounds of the instruments and the music in this. Like, didn't click with me until I saw it this time, where it was like, oh, that's where I learned to listen to music. That's where I learned to appreciate the thing in the background.
Yeah.
That gives that extra layer.
Right. I do have a note that, boy, those parents can sleep through anything. The kid and the snowman are like bopping around their room with the lights on, and the parents like, honk shoe.
I'm putting makeup on. I'm getting dressed in the dad's clothes.
Yeah. They're perfectly quiet. Don't worry about it. And then we get to the song.
The famous song from this.
I immediately can see why it's famous. Like, that is a wonderfully memorable song that is not only like the only words in this movie, but it's so
appropriate for the moment and the actual he's. So I like the fact that they have like all this chaos and anarchy in the house, and then the snowman sees like the frozen food with like the winter like landscape on it, and then that's what kicks him into the let's fly essentially to the North Pole kind of
let's go see Santa.
Yep. Yeah. The song literally gives me goosebumps. I cannot hear it without goosebumps.
It's beautifully sung. Like it's a fantastic piece of music, and all the more powerful because it's the only spoken or sung words in this movie. So and it's such a cool kind of transition to a dreamier section of the movie where they're kind of flying out over the world and flying out through all these towns where you see all the other snowmen and everything.
The multicultural snowman is great. Like,
yeah,
and the fact that the music, like, it takes a break and the music shifts and changes like repeatedly, like really quickly. It's like many different instruments, many different styles of music, and each of the snowmen are represented by their own type of music, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really cool, and actually, I actually really like the ending of just being like, oh, let's go check on the snowman. Nope, snowman melted. Like it's
super sad.
Yeah, and like the kind of like bittersweet lack of permanence for snow and for Christmas and all that. Like the thing that I wanted to ask you is like, is the ending of this movie like a national soft spot? Like, does everybody get emotional at the ending?
I did. 100% I did. When I was younger, I definitely did. I think one of the funny things about this is like it came out, what, 1985, 86, something like that? 1982. There we go.
Yeah.
And I think one of the funny things about thinking about it now, and this is me listening to Austin Walker too much, like looking at this with a more analytical eye from an adult's perspective, this portrays what the British quintessentially think about themselves. So the house in the countryside with the farm and with the fields and
the
stuff,
brick walls and everything.
Yeah. Like a lot of British people, when you think of British, especially myself, even me, when I think of the word British and what that means, I think of the single house with the little fields on the plot of land in the countryside. I don't think of where I actually grew up, which is the city. I think of the countryside. Right. I think of that style of house, that style of place. Like that's what I think of when I think Britain. I don't think metropolises. I don't think cities. I don't think suburbs. I think of that. Like that feels like they're trying to, and successfully, arguably, representing what Britain thinks of themselves in an idyllic kind of form. And when I was a kid, like every time the snowman would melt, I would bust into tears. I would always cry at the end of it, 100%. And again, it's like, it's a great, like, I'm very curious if it's trying to show, is it the impermanence of youth? Is it the impermanence of hope? Right. Is it what exactly is it representing? Like, because obviously the parents are sitting there having their breakfast in the morning, and the kid goes out to see the snowman and it's melted because whatever. But at the same time, like, as someone who grew up in a city, I never saw snow like this. So even the idea of building a snowman to me was something that was super rare, because the snow I got was less than a half-inch thick and it melted in 2 seconds flat.
It's all like the mushy gray stuff.
Exactly. Like, I didn't live in the mountains, so I never got to see enough snow to the point where I could build an actual snowman.
Right.
And now I live over here and snow can go never
bleepity
appear
bleep
again. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's like, I distinctly remember everyone got sad when it ends.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have like a redeeming message at the end. It's not like, oh, in a couple of days or the next year it snowed again and the snowman came back. It's like, no, like, you don't know. It's just
not even
sad.
It's not even the end of like the first Frozen movie where Olaf comes back. Hooray! Yay! It's just sort of like, no, snowmen melt. The seasons are going to change. That's just how it is.
Yeah, and like the kid has the scarf, like, which he pulls out of his pocket, which is a nice touch. I think that gives it a little bit of hope, but at the same time, it's like, oof.
Yeah, it's still bittersweet. Yeah, it's a cool movie. It's really interesting to see, kind of accidentally these two movies are kind of polar opposites of each other, where, you know, Charlie Brown's Christmas is very traditional cell animation with a traditional kind of jazz soundtrack. And then The Snowman is this kind of really ripped from the pages art style that's kind of
It's
more,
shocking how accurate they got that.
yeah,
Like,
and it's like more dreamy, it's more experimental, it's kind of a little bit more more daring in a way that I don't think you usually see nowadays, in a way that I think is cool. It's a cool style, and it's if anyone hasn't read the book, it's pretty much the exact same thing. As soon as I saw that Snowman, I was like, oh, that's the book. Okay, got it. Yep.
it is. It's one of those things like people don't realize. Like I say, the Snowman, the animated movie, the animated short, however you want to phrase it, and people are like, okay, never seen it, never heard of it, never done. But you see it, and you're like, oh,
the super famous book. Right.
now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad.
Still, most people haven't seen the actual animated short.
Right, I don't think I have ever seen it before this, and I'm surprised because I feel like it would do really well, pretty much all over the world. Like it's kind of it can be a pretty universal thing, especially with there being no words. Like you just kind of put that in front of pretty much anybody, and I think it'll be great. Yeah, I'm glad we did this because it's interesting to see the kind of stark contrast between these two, with both of them having an interesting take on what Christmas can mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And here is something I didn't know. Obviously, like, so Walking in the Air is a famous song, really famous song in the UK. It's been covered by countless amounts of artists. Most of the time, they try and stick with the original. So choir boys usually in a cathedral singing it because that's where it was originally recorded. That's how they get that clarity of voice, that power, because it was originally recorded in a cathedral by I think it was the lead singer of a young boys choir at the time, but it has been re-recorded a whole bunch of times. I didn't know that Nightwish have made a cover of it.
Oh, interesting. I
will be checking that out.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, that's our Christmas exchange, trading movies across the ocean. We're watching some of our childhood favorites.
Across the ocean in the history, and then across the country in modern day.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.